While others frantically try to maintain order, history's greatest strategists deliberately create chaos. Think about it. In the stillness of perfect order, nothing changes. But in disruption, that's where opportunity is born. My name is Ejike Lincoln, and what I'm about to share will challenge everything you've been taught about success. Most people believe stability breeds opportunity. They're wrong. The most powerful opportunities emerge from carefully engineered disorder. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago. The brilliant minds who shaped our world, from political revolutionaries to tech billionaires, all mastered this hidden principle. Controlled chaos creates advantages that remain invisible to everyone else. Look at the marketplace today. The businesses and leaders who thrive aren't the ones who play it safe. They're the ones who strategically disrupt, who introduce calculated uncertainty when everyone else clings desperately to predictability. The truth is uncomfortable. If you can't navigate chaos, you're at the mercy of those who can. While others become paralyzed by uncertainty, those who understand these principles step forward and claim opportunities others don't even see. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal how you can master controlled chaos to create extraordinary opportunities in your career, business, and life. Not by reckless action, but through strategic disruption that puts you steps ahead of everyone else. This isn't another motivational talk. These are battle-tested strategies used by history's master strategists. Are you ready to see what they see? Before I reveal these Machiavellian principles, understand this. Once you see how power truly operates, you cannot unsee it. This knowledge will fundamentally shift how you read people, situations, and the games being played around you every day. If you're not ready for that level of awareness, stop watching now. For everyone else, pay attention to every word. Number 1. The calculated disruption principle. Have you ever watched someone walk into a perfectly harmonious situation and intentionally shake things up? Your first instinct was probably to think, why would they mess with something that's working? This reaction is exactly why calculated disruption is so powerful, because almost nobody does it deliberately. Think about water for a moment. When it's perfectly still, you can see right through it. But give it a stir and suddenly everything becomes murky. Most people hate that murkiness. They want clarity. They want predictability. But what if I told you that this temporary lack of clarity is precisely where the greatest opportunities hide? Consider what happens when a new technology enters an established market. The initial disruption causes confusion. Established players scramble to maintain the status quo. But the disruptor who intentionally created this chaos, they're not confused at all. They navigate the turbulence with perfect clarity because they created it. This isn't about random acts of disruption. It's about strategic intervention at critical points in stable systems. Every stable system has pressure points, areas where a small disruption causes disproportionate effects. Finding these leverage points is the first step in mastering controlled chaos. Let me show you how this works in practice. When Netflix initially disrupted video rental, they didn't attack Blockbuster's core business model directly. Instead, they identified a pressure point, late fees, and eliminated them. This single disruption eventually collapsed an entire industry. Or consider how Amazon disrupted book selling. They didn't try to build better bookstores. They identified the pressure point, the physical store itself, and eliminated it. One strategic disruption, massive consequences. Here's where most people go wrong. They try to compete within existing frameworks. But Machiavellian strategists know better. They identify which elements of a situation can be safely destabilized, creating advantages invisible to those trying to maintain order. This brings us to principle number 1 out of 5, the calculated disruption principle. Identify stable systems relevant to your goals, find their pressure points, and strategically disrupt them to create asymmetric opportunities. where small actions yield disproportionate results. The key is selectivity. You're not trying to create total chaos. You're making surgical strikes at precisely the right point in a system. Ask yourself, what one element, if disrupted, would create the most opportunity while others scramble to restore order? Start small. Identify a stable process in your work or business. Find the one assumption everyone takes for granted. Now challenge it, not recklessly but strategically. The momentary confusion this creates will reveal opportunities invisible to those desperate to maintain the status quo. Remember, calculated disruption isn't about destroying. It's about creating space for something new to emerge. While others waste energy trying to restore what was, you'll be building what could be. Number 2. Opportunity, blindness, and pattern breaking. Let me ask you something strange. Have you ever noticed that you stop noticing things? Your brain is constantly filtering information, deciding what deserves your attention and what doesn't. This filtering happens automatically, beneath your conscious awareness. And while it's necessary for daily functioning, it creates a dangerous condition I call opportunity blindness. Think about driving a familiar route. You arrive at your destination with almost no memory of the journey. Your brain went on autopilot, filtering out what it deemed unimportant. But what if a life-changing opportunity was hiding along that familiar path? Would you even see it? Most people miss extraordinary opportunities, not because they're unintelligent, but because their brains are efficiently filtering out anything that doesn't match established patterns. This is why industry outsiders often disrupt established markets. They simply don't have the same blindness. Consider how ride-sharing disrupted the taxi industry. For decades, insiders saw the medallion system as immutable. Their pattern recognition said, "This is how transportation works." It took outsiders without this pattern recognition to see the opportunity hiding in plain sight. Or think about how digital cameras were initially rejected by Kodak, the company that invented them. Their pattern recognition said, photography means film. This blindness to opportunity cost them everything. This brings us to principle number 2 out of 5. Break your patterns to break your blindness. Your greatest opportunities aren't hiding in obscure places. They're hiding in plain sight, camouflaged by your brain's efficient pattern recognition. Here's a practical exercise to overcome opportunity blindness. The inversion technique. Take any established process in your field and completely invert it. If everyone sells product first and offers service second, what would happen if you reversed it? If everyone in your industry charges by the hour, what if you charged by results? Another powerful pattern-breaking exercise is cross-domain application. Choose a successful strategy from a completely unrelated field and force yourself to apply it to your situation. How would a surgeon approach your business problem? How would a chess grandmaster tackle your career challenge? Perhaps the most powerful pattern-breaking technique is the beginner's mind audit. Regularly ask yourself, if I knew nothing about this situation, what might I try that experience tells me won't work? Often, what experience tells you won't work is exactly where breakthrough opportunities hide. The beauty of pattern breaking is that it creates a temporary advantage. While others remain blind to opportunities that don't match their established patterns, you'll see possibilities they can't even perceive. And in that perceptual gap lies extraordinary competitive advantage. Start today. Choose one established pattern in your work or life and intentionally break it. The initial discomfort you feel is your brain resisting the disruption of efficient patterns. Push through it. That discomfort is the sensation of new neural pathways forming, pathways that lead to opportunities others can't see. Remember, your greatest opportunities aren't hiding from you. You're hiding from them, behind the efficient filters of your pattern recognition. Break the patterns. Break the blindness. Number 3. The strategic chaos, threshold. Think about fire for a moment. Controlled, it cooks your food and warms your home. Uncontrolled, it destroys everything in its path. The difference between benefit and catastrophe isn't the fire itself. It's the threshold beyond which you can no longer harness it. The same principle applies to chaos. There exists in every situation a precise threshold, a tipping point between productive disruption and destructive chaos. Most people avoid creating any disruption because they fear crossing this threshold. But Machiavellian strategists understand how to calculate it with remarkable precision. Consider how Elon Musk operates. When he announced Tesla would eliminate dealerships, he created significant disruption in the auto industry. But notice what he didn't disrupt: the core experience of buying and owning a car. He precisely calculated how much disruption the market could productively absorb. Or look at how Southwest Airlines disrupted air travel. They eliminated assigned seating and meal service, but maintained the core experience of safe, reliable transportation. They calculated exactly how much chaos the market would tolerate while still embracing their innovation. This brings us to principle number 3 out of 5. Master your strategic chaos threshold, the precise point where disruption transforms from opportunity to disaster. This threshold isn't fixed. It varies by situation, by market, and by timing. Learning to calculate it is perhaps the most valuable skill in strategic disruption. Here's how to calculate your chaos threshold in any situation. First, identify the core value elements, the fundamental aspects that cannot be disrupted without destroying value. For a restaurant, food safety is a core value element. For a software company, data security might be one. Next, identify the peripheral elements, aspects that can be disrupted without compromising the core value. For a restaurant, maybe it's the traditional menu format. For a software company, perhaps it's the pricing model. Now apply the 70-30 rule of strategic disruption. Maintain absolute stability in the 30% that represents core value elements, while strategically disrupting the 70% that represents peripheral elements. This ratio ensures you remain below the chaos threshold while still creating enough disruption to generate new opportunities. Remember, miscalculating this threshold is what separates brilliant innovation from catastrophic failure. Disrupt too little, and you create no new opportunities. Disrupt too much, and you destroy existing value faster than you can create new value. The masters of controlled chaos understand that this threshold isn't static. It changes with circumstances. During stable periods, the threshold is typically lower. Markets tolerate less disruption. During unstable periods, the threshold rises. Greater disruption becomes not just tolerable, but necessary. Start applying this today. In your next project, explicitly identify your core value elements and your peripheral elements. Maintain absolute stability in the former while strategically disrupting the latter. Watch how this controlled approach to chaos creates opportunities invisible to those who either avoid disruption entirely or who create chaos without strategic calculation. Remember, it's not about being reckless. It's about precise calculation of exactly how much disruption creates opportunity without crossing into destruction. Master your chaos threshold, and you master the art of strategic opportunity creation. If you're still here, you already think differently. That alone sets you apart. Now, sharpen your edge. Hit subscribe. This is how you stay 10 steps ahead in a world that rewards the silent strategist. Number 4. Asymmetric information leverage. Have you noticed that during moments of uncertainty, most people have one overwhelming instinct? They try to restore order as quickly as possible. This natural human response creates one of the most powerful opportunities for Machiavellian strategists, what I call asymmetric information leverage. When disruption occurs, information becomes the most valuable currency. But here's the critical insight. While most people focus on restoring stability, they stop gathering new information. Their attention narrows. They rely on old data. And in that moment of collective information blindness, extraordinary opportunities emerge for those who keep collecting intelligence. Consider what happened during the early days of the pandemic. While most businesses frantically tried to restore normal operations, Amazon did something different. They accelerated their information gathering, studying shifting consumer behaviors in real time. This asymmetric approach to information during chaos led to one of the greatest market share expansions in business history. Or look at how Warren Buffett operates during financial market disruptions. While others panic to restore portfolio stability, Buffett intensifies his information gathering. This asymmetric approach has repeatedly allowed him to acquire extraordinary assets at discounted prices, while others are information blind. This brings us to principle number 4 out of 5. During chaos, become an information collector, while others focus on restoring order. This asymmetric approach to information during disruption positions you to act decisively when others are still processing what happened. Here's how to develop this capacity. First, create what I call chaos protocols, predetermined plans for how you'll gather critical information during disruption rather than immediately acting to restore order. When everyone else is reacting, you'll be researching. Next, practice information triage, the ability to rapidly distinguish between 3 types of information during chaos: noise, irrelevant data; signal, relevant data; and leading indicators, data that predicts future developments. Most people drown in noise during disruption. Masters of chaos filter for signals and leading indicators. Perhaps most importantly, develop what behavioral economists call System 2 decision-making during chaos, the ability to think slowly and deliberately when everyone else is thinking fast and reactively. This creates enormous information advantages when others are operating on autopilot. The practical application is straightforward. In your next crisis, resist the immediate urge to restore order. Instead, deliberately allocate the first 20% of your response time to accelerated information gathering. Ask questions no one else is asking. Look where no one else is looking. This brief investment in asymmetric information will position you to act with precision when others are still stumbling in reactivity. Remember, information asymmetry is temporary. It exists only during the window between disruption and the return to stability. But temporary advantages, strategically leveraged, create permanent gains. Start developing this capacity today. In your next meeting or project where unexpected developments occur, notice the overwhelming pull to immediately restore order. Resist it. Instead, become intensely curious. Gather information others ignore in their rush to stability. Then, when you do act, you'll do so with informational advantages invisible to those who responded reactively. In chaos, the most valuable resource isn't speed, it's information. While others rush to action, the strategic disruptor becomes a collector of insights others are too distracted to gather. Number 5. The resilience paradox. There's a counterintuitive truth about human psychology that most people never discover. The more you avoid discomfort, the more painful it becomes when inevitably encountered. This principle applies profoundly to chaos and disruption, creating what I call the resilience paradox. Most people structure their lives and businesses to minimize disruption. They seek stability and predictability, but in doing so, they inadvertently create extreme fragility. When inevitable chaos arrives, they lack the adaptive capacity to respond effectively. Their avoidance of small disruptions leaves them vulnerable to catastrophic ones. Consider how different branches of the military train elite forces. They don't shield recruits from stress and chaos. They systematically expose them to controlled adversity. This deliberate exposure builds extraordinary resilience that becomes decisive in actual combat situations. Or look at how anti-fragile businesses operate. Companies like Toyota deliberately create small, contained disruptions in their production systems through practices like and-on cords that allow any worker to stop the entire production line. These micro-disruptions systematically build organizational resilience. This brings us to principle number 5 out of 5. Deliberately expose yourself to controlled chaos to build extraordinary resilience. This isn't about learning from random failures. It's about intentionally creating small, manageable crises that inoculate you against larger ones. Here's how to apply this principle. First, practice what psychologists call stress inoculation, the deliberate exposure to manageable challenges that prepare you for larger ones. Start with small disruptions in low-stakes environments, then gradually increase intensity as your resilience grows. Next, implement the barbell strategy, a risk management approach where you're simultaneously extremely conservative in some areas while taking calculated risks in others. This creates the perfect training ground for resilience without risking catastrophic failure. Perhaps most powerfully, develop scenario resilience through regular pre-mortems, mental exercises where you imagine potential disruptions and rehearse responses before they occur. This creates neural pathways that remain accessible during actual chaos when most people's cognitive resources become overwhelmed. The practical application is straightforward. Identify areas in your work or life where you've been avoiding small disruptions in the name of efficiency or comfort. Deliberately introduce controlled chaos into these areas. Start small, tiny disruptions that stretch but don't break your adaptive capacity. Then gradually increase the intensity. For example, if you run a team, occasionally change project parameters midstream. If you're developing a career, regularly take on assignments slightly beyond your current capabilities. These deliberate exposures to manageable chaos build the adaptive muscle that becomes decisive when major disruption occurs. Remember, the goal isn't suffering for its own sake. It's strategic exposure to controlled adversity that builds adaptive capacity invisible to those who optimize exclusively for comfort and stability. Start today. Identify one area where you've been avoiding small disruptions. Deliberately introduce controlled chaos in this area. Notice your initial discomfort. That's the sensation of resilience being built. Over time, you'll develop an adaptive capacity that allows you to thrive in conditions that paralyze others. The ultimate competitive advantage isn't avoiding chaos, it's developing the capacity to navigate it with clarity and purpose when others become overwhelmed. That capacity comes not from avoiding disruption, but from strategically embracing it. As we reach the end of our exploration into controlled chaos, remember that what we've discussed isn't just theory. It's the hidden operating system used by history's most effective strategists. From Machiavelli to modern disruptors, those who master these principles see possibilities invisible to others. The 5 principles we've covered: calculated disruption, pattern breaking, chaos threshold management, information leverage, and the resilience paradox form a comprehensive framework for turning uncertainty into advantage. When integrated, they create an approach to opportunity that puts you steps ahead of reactive thinkers. Most importantly, understand that chaos isn't something to fear or avoid. It's a powerful force to be strategically harnessed. In a world increasingly defined by disruption, the ability to navigate chaos with clarity becomes the ultimate competitive advantage. Start small. Apply one principle today. Watch how it immediately reveals opportunities invisible to those desperately clinging to predictability. Then gradually integrate all 5 until strategic disruption becomes not just a skill, but your natural operating state. Remember, in the stillness of perfect order, nothing changes. But in controlled chaos, that's where extraordinary opportunities are born. The choice is yours. Remain at the mercy of disruption, or master the art of creating it. The next video the algorithm chose for you isn't random. It's your next tactical upgrade. Click it now and continue your silent ascent. Those who hesitate lose influence.